Good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back and hello to the new participants that we might have in our group this afternoon. We've so enjoyed being with you all day. For me, that's really been all day, started pretty early. And for some of our panelists today, they are on from their evening in Shanghai. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of an overview of who's on the call with us right now on our Zoom. We have Dalinka Fabini from Budapest, American International School Budapest, Daniela Peric from Zagreb, American International School of Zagreb, Li Ming Ma from Shanghai, American School Shanghai, Juan Carlos Compres from Carol Morgan School, Holly Lin, Shanghai American School, Kathy Marabit, our partner, unit design person from retired Rabat, Laura Voss from Budapest, and our tech helper from the middle school meeting, Martina. And we will be starting off today just as a reminder of all that we've covered already. You know it's our project. You've seen the elementary, the middle. Now you'll see the high school presentation, and following this presentation, you'll be able to watch our final presentation for today, which is working on the shorter sequences back with Hanadi Daye. We have such a talented team here, though. We're going to start right away. Just bear with us a minute. We've had some tech glitches with Wi-Fi, so this time it's going to be my turn to try to share the screen, and we will try to finish in time for questions with you all. So we're going to the screen share. And I'm going to start, this will start with Laura Voss, who will be introducing our project in about 8 seconds. Well, we're running into the same problem we had before. Give me just a minute to tee it up again.
Thank you, Christy. I'm Laura Voss, and I'm teacher of German and Social Studies at the American International School of Budapest. And I would like to start my presentation by sharing with a
Sorry about that.
With one from the target language.
Let's try one more time.
Hello, everyone.
You will need to reshare, Christy.
I will.
Thank you, Christy. I'm Laura Voss, and I'm teacher of German and Thank you, Christy. I'm Laura Voss, and I'm teacher of German and Social Studies at the American International School of Budapest. And I would like to start my presentation or my share with a short story in a way. When I was going to teacher training college and I was 19, I heard a beautiful German compound noun. It's called Fragekultur. It means the question, the culture of questions.
Sorry, Christy,
and I always loved that term. And the teacher of pedagogy told me that this is the core of teaching. A good Fragekultur is something that will allow you to become a good teacher. I think it took me 2 decades to fully
Sorry about that, everybody. I'm assuming
understand that, and it happened in the framework of the
my screen either. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. Daniela, do you want to try yours? I know that we've got yours also lined up. If not, we might have to revert to live.
Yeah, I can try.
Thanks for having the same recording issue. Who is at the American International School. Let's see what we have going on now.
Thank you, Christy. I'm Laura Voss, and I'm teacher of German and Social Studies at the American International School of Budapest. And I would like to start my presentation or my share with a short story in a way. When I was going to teacher training college and I was 19, I heard a beautiful German compound noun. It's called Fragekultur. It means the question, the culture of questions. And I always loved that term. And my teacher of pedagogy told me that this is the core of teaching. A good Fragekultur is something that will allow you to become a good teacher. I think it took me 2 decades to fully understand that, and it happened in the framework of the AERO project during the time when we were compiling these questions, the essential questions that you can see here for the high school division. The questions hold the curriculum together, and they have a twofold function. It's a cement that holds something together and then creates a strong backbone. And on the other hand, it allows us to remain really open-minded and encourage ourselves as well as our students to ask further questions and to engage into further inquiries. The questions were informed on the basis of many, many different things. We looked at national curricula, international curricula. We did look at the ACT4 standards, European Framework of Languages curriculum, Oxfam, the UN Sustainable Development Goals, some other curricula, social studies curricula, several different ones from the AERO framework, but C3 as well, the Cambridge A-levels, and IB, of course. The goal was to create a backbone and a framework that would be compatible with many, many other things. So in case students in the school are taking the full IB diploma, they would be able to work with these questions as well. I would like to give you just a few examples of how these questions work. One from the grade 9 curriculum, the question, if you look at the very first one, how do I develop skills for success in high school and life? This is the question, the title of a unit in grade 9. And when I actually talked to our counselor about this question, she was super happy to hear that, because these are skills and content that they try to desperately address throughout the school year. And with that, we are able to serve students in a very holistic manner, but also teach them the essential language skills that we find are important. Another example from the grade 10 curriculum, what is worth standing up for is the big umbrella question. And one of the smaller questions, one supporting question to this big compelling question is, what are the local and global challenges and possible solutions for environmental sustainability? I believe that sustainability and environmental protection is the most important topic in the 21st century. And the fact that we can address this topic in the world language curriculum equips our students not only with the essential language skills, but they can also learn about other cultures, solutions, and problems. And they will be able to transfer that knowledge from the world language classroom into other classrooms. This is, again, a unit that is essential, I believe, content-wise and also critical thinking-wise. I do remember that as a teacher of German and as a Hungarian citizen, I was amazed when I learned about German recycling and the German approaches, Austrian approaches to environmental issues. It really influenced my life to a great deal. And I do believe that this would be also the experience of our students if they have access to the solutions and issues that other cultures are facing, which will equip them with really important solutions in the future. From the grade 11 curriculum, I just would like to demystify one of the most complex sounding questions. The one is the one before the last, how to manage multiple perspectives and cognitive conflicts respectfully and effectively. It sounds like a big, big question. Who can answer this one? I was fortunate to contribute to writing this unit, and we realized that simply talking about some of the issues today that are very relevant, in this case, it was the coronavirus situation, and then the responses to the pandemic issues worldwide, allowed students to think about different solutions, compare and contrast them, and again, develop an attitude that would be hard to do in other classrooms if there is not enough attention paid to the different cultures. And finally, from the grade 12 curriculum, how can intercultural understanding and engagement contribute to personal and global well-being? I believe just the umbrella question, the big question, is already addressing the core idea that we all believe in, that a successful world language curriculum is going to equip our students in a very holistic manner, not only with language skills, but also with intercultural understanding, conflict resolution, and an open mindset that that other subjects can also benefit from. One of the questions here was how can different perspectives contribute to sustainable and balanced personal, local, and global solutions? Again, this unit was tied to the UN Sustainable Development Goals and allows students to talk about a range of topics. To sum up the importance of questions here, I would like to emphasize that the questions allow us to create a curriculum that establishes bridges with other subjects. Most beautiful feedback about these questions happened to me when I was sitting in a social studies department meeting, and then you're thinking about how to reorganize our curriculum. And then when I showed this model, the enthusiasm was pretty clear that yes, this is the way to go. These kind of questions can help us to connect and bridge subjects much better in the future than we did in the past. The goal, however, is always on the students, and the goal is to allow students to live the world language curriculum with solid language skills, with intercultural understanding, the readiness to find solutions, to become responsible, empathetic global citizens. And I do believe that these questions are doing the best to provide them with this experience. I'm handing over to our leader, high school leader, Daniela Peric, who is going to, Dorsav Kuki, who is going to talk about more regarding the curriculum.
Hello, everybody. Next slide, please. My name is Dorsav Kuki, and I am a former teacher from the American Cooperative School of Tunis, where I spent 30 years exploring and developing, trying to develop as much as possible the language learning program for Arabic and for French, in addition to the language of instruction, that's English. And I would like just to share with you a story, my story with AERO that started, it is true, 15 years ago, first with the social studies department, and I thank you, Laura, for this reference as well, because actually we are not embarked on a ship alone. We are just all together with the faculty for the different learning subject that the students are exposed to. So when I started 30 years ago to facilitate a club for Arabic students who really hated Arabic, and the parents were saying it would be great if they could reconcile with their own identity and value their roots, know their language, and answer us back in Arabic at home. So when I started, it was a club for different levels, different age levels, ages and grades. And I took it from there for 1 year as I embarked them on an experiential learning travel. So we were just kind of doing things together, trying to solve problems together in the environment, discovering our school is in the middle of the city of Carthage, almost a millenary city with many medinas around. And we tried to get to the real life, to authentic situation, to make them see that how Arabic could be a tool for communication, to also change the impact of for instance, the environment around us, help people communicate with people. Next slide, please. So it's again through this approach that I just started at that time. It was like 30, maybe 28 years ago, the Tunisian Studies program. And actually it was really an AERO world language integrated host country study model. At that time, I wasn't in AERO, but one person came from the state government, I think from the Office of Overseas School, and went with us in one of our trips actually across Sidi Bou Said, not far from the school. And he invited me to join the social studies AERO team to bring in some of the perspective from the Oriental, part of the world, and from the Arabic background and cultures. And this is how I entered in AERO, and then followed up, of course, with our project director for the AERO World Languages model. And I really am very grateful because owing to that, we could really develop a program of Arabic that quickly became part of the curriculum and was built around what the students were learning in the other subjects. So we could embark all the faculty with us in those Tunisian studies trips. And actually the units were not just for languages only, but the whole faculty adopted adapted them. And it was like co-teaching together. And we could develop all that owing to the AERO experience I really had and that the school subscribed to and committed to. And all the teachers were very grateful because we had a possibility of building units together with our cross-curricular links and also our vertical alignment. So as you can see here, for instance, middle school was integrating history, so social studies, and next slide, please. As you can see through the history of Tunisia. And then for sciences, for the high school, we chose to have a focus on sciences. Of course, it changes depending on the programs the students are following. And this adapts very well to the American curriculum that the school is following, but also to the IB program. And owing to that, as you can see, we could explore what Laura was saying actually, not only like during our classes, in classes, but also in the fields around us. And another element which was very important, next slide please, is the community service. Sorry, previous. Yeah, we did just do not only like charity projects, but we really worked and we have sustainable projects with orphanages, disabled centers, green land, like natural parks, etc., to help to build, to grow biological products that we would sell in our school. Things like that really embodied what we really all target in teaching languages. Communication tool that could be interactive enough to develop the cognitive thinking of the students, but also help them solve problems and communicate with others and improve the world around them. So that was the hook actually. And you can see later the different learner profiles, if you want, that this could develop in the students collaboratively in planning with other teachers. So this is my takeaway from the AERO experience that I had for 15 years from the beginning to till now, and I am now retiring, but still very, very passionate about it, and I'm very happy to be part of this group. Thank you. Next slide, please. Of course, this is, it really comes back to what Laura was saying also about this holistic approach. So we language teachers cannot feel that we are not part of this holistic learning puzzle of our students. In our team meetings, whether horizontal teams or vertical teams, we have a role in our schools. And this role, of course, cannot be as impactful as it was at the American School of Tools without the support of all the stakeholders, leadership and administration that really believes in multilingualism and intercultural understanding, a board that's supportive, parents, community of parents involved, teachers also very supportive to integration. And that is also a problem of scheduling. So we need to have all these curriculum coordinators on board with us. And of course, frankly, it makes a difference when it's not just my isolated group in my isolated room that we are just kind of trying to develop the language, but all together in this kind of projects. Next slide, please. Next. And again, was Laura also said it, and I'm sorry for the redundancy. As you can see, we are just kind of in full alignment with the European framework, as you can see with NISA, with IB, and actually there are many babies to the AERO projects because the World Language Project, because we truly did many initiatives. Also, for instance, for me, I can talk about the Arab world. We had, for instance, the NISA Arabic Advisory Group, with where we developed native or Arabic background standards and benchmarks, but also with Queen Rania Academy, Teacher Academy, we developed a whole set of standards and benchmarks, and really this is all kind of little babies from our AERO program. And again, I really encourage you to make of the learning language part of one piece of that big puzzle that the students are having, and we call it learning. Thank you. Now I would like to turn the mic to, I'm handing over to Daniela Perich, please.
Thank you, Dorsaf. Could you just click to the next slide, please? Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Daniela Peric, and I work at American International School of Zagreb. Currently, I'm teaching middle school and high school German. Today, I will be talking about grade 9, specifically Unit 2, which focuses on the questions, how do I take care of my health and well-being? As Laura has already mentioned, each grade level has an overarching inquiry question or an essential question, which is then being addressed through 5 different units, and each unit focusing on a different aspect and questions. So all units are designed using the backwards design model. So when we started writing the units, we wanted to make sure that standards and benchmarks are aligned and that each benchmark is assessed at least once throughout the year. In order to make sure that we really do assess all benchmarks, we started off with the big picture. So you can see an example of grade 9, and the grade level question was, how can we develop while caring for ourselves and our community? Then we had the 5 unit questions or essential questions, which you can see on the top of this visual. And having all benchmarks in mind, we started then designing the summative tasks, which you can see in the middle of this visual. And then having all benchmarks in mind and the summatives, we started creating the units. In the green section on the bottom, you can see which summative assessment and which unit is assessing which benchmark and what standard. But today I'm not going to talk how we designed the units, but more about how I thought and implemented the unit. It is important to mention here that this unit is done with students who have had at least 8 or some of them even 9 years of language experience with German. On the slide, you can see on the top the unit question, in the middle the grade level question, and the enduring understanding of this unit. So the main or big idea we want our students to walk away with was that having a balanced life can benefit our health, social skills, and increase our mental well-being. So each unit from kindergarten all the way up to high school has an enduring understanding embedded in the unit, and you can find this all on Atlas. Every time I start a new unit, could we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. Every time I start a new unit, I show my students what the objectives of the unit are, or what they will be able to do by the end of this unit. I usually write them on a poster and then I put them up somewhere in the classroom. It gives the students a clear idea of what we'll be doing throughout the unit, but it also helps them to stay focused on their learning targets. So whenever we do a task in class, the students have to connect it to one of these objectives. Next one. In order to achieve all these objectives and benchmarks, we had to focus on different things throughout the unit. So one of them was vocabulary building and grammar. I used a range of different texts, so written texts, audio, and visuals about healthy lifestyle, stress, relaxation, movement, and nutrition. So while we were reading the text, the students had to make their own vocabulary list that included vocabulary that was essential for them in order to talk about their health and well-being. And some of the lessons also included lectures on essential structures or grammar structures. In our class, for example, we were learning structures on how to give advice in German. We also focused on the communication standard. So the students had to research and present their findings using different text types. The focus was on all 3 communication skills, so the interpretive, presentational, and interpersonal skills. Besides that, we also focused on the standards, culture, comparison, and connection. I would also like to mention here that all units are linked to other subject areas. So at the same time as I was doing this unit with my students, the science teacher was teaching her unit on nutrition with her science class. That was actually a really nice connection. So the students could actually use what they learned in science and apply it in their German class. I started off the unit with an activity called Think, Pair, Share, and I asked my students to think about the following question. What makes a good lifestyle, and what does the term balance mean? So the students had a few minutes to take notes, think about it, and then they shared it with another classmate And at the end, we discussed it as a whole class. As a follow-up activity, the students had to write a blog entry where they had to reflect on their own lifestyle. And this is an example you can see here from a blog. And I used this as a pre-assessment to see what the students already know and what they're able to produce. One of our first assessment tasks focused on the connection between physical movement and mental well-being. So in class, the students had to look up the word endorphins, and they did some further research on that topic to find out how exercising is linked to our mental well-being. This was a peer work activity. So they had to apply the content they learned in their science class units here as well. So the students presented their findings in form of a presentation. And what you can see on the slide here is a screenshot from one of the presentations where the students talked about yoga and what effect breathing and meditation have on us. The next example is about eating habits and nutrition. We viewed and read a few texts about eating habits in the target culture. So the students then had to prepare a presentation in which they compared a dish from their home country with one from the target language country. The benchmark we were focusing on here was comparison and culture. So the students had to reflect on the differences and similarities between the dishes, having the social and geographical factors in mind. This here is a screenshot from a presentation where a student compared the Greek spanakopita, I hope I pronounced that correctly, to the German Kartoffelsuppe. Another task throughout which we practiced giving advice and essential sentence structure was to create a brochure that is promoting a healthy lifestyle. So the focus of the brochure was not so much on the content itself, but more on the language structures. The students were required to use the imperative form or the modal verb should in order to give advice. What you can see here are two examples of brochures that my students created. Next one, please. And the last task, which my students, I have to say, liked the most, was to write a script for an interview. So they had to pretend that one of them was working at a TV station as a presenter or interviewer, and the other student was a famous nutritionist and fitness trainer who came to the show in order to talk about the importance of health and a balanced life. So we were supposed to do this in person, but unfortunately, we went into a short lockdown 2 days prior to the assessment, and the students had to present their project virtually, which actually turned out even better because the students could use sound effects from their computers, they did dress up, and they also prepared some prompts. So this is just a screenshot from the recording and the presentation, but due to GDPR, I had to cover the students' faces. Next slide. And for their summative task, the students had to analyze their own lifestyle, and they had to write 2 blog entries in which they talk about their lifestyle at the moment. And they had to talk about all points we covered in class, which included nutrition, stress management, and movement. They also had to say what it is they dislike about their lifestyle and make a list of things they would like to change and explain why they would like to change it. And at the end, they shared their blog entries, they shared it with the classmates, and they had also different reflection rounds. I'm going to hand over now to Holy Lin and Liming Ma.
Okay, hello, my name is Liming Ma. I'm teaching high school Chinese in Shanghai American School. Okay, and the slides, please. Okay, the theme of Unit 5 is globalization. The unit question is, how does globalization impact our communities? For example, education, health, endangered culture, etc.
Hi, everyone. I am Hao Ling, high school Chinese teacher in Shanghai American School in China. Li Ming and I will work as a duo in this presentation, sharing with you how Unit 5 was developed. So follow the unit question. The unit summary including 3 parts. So the unit will focus on the impact Globalization has on the different aspects of our communities. Students will start with identifying, analyzing, and assessing how globalization is impacting communities around the world. And lastly, students will also identify how globalization has impacted their local communities. Next slide, please.
Our enduring understanding is how foreign culture affects local culture and how to take corresponding measures when local culture faces foreign impacts are globalization subjects that humans need to reflect on in the 21st century. We also have 4 additional essential questions as listed on our PowerPoint. These essential questions lie in the heart of the theme and promote inquiry and encourage the theme.
Next slide, please. As mentioned earlier in this presentation, backward design model is our approach of developing a unit. Therefore, before we design our lessons, here are the learning targets we have in mind. Okay. Students will be able to talk about how their traditional customs and influenced by foreign cultures. Students will understand and discuss the impact of foreign cultures in their own traditional customs. Students will understand and tolerate different culture. Finally, students will create a report in writing based on discussion about the impact of globalization.
Okay, next slide. Thank you. This is a warm-up reading material. We try to arouse interest of the students on this theme. So we choose Starbucks opens in Forbidden City as our breakthrough point. As you know, Forbidden City in Beijing represents Chinese traditional culture and custom. When Starbucks opened in Forbidden City, it caused a lot of discussion and debate in China. Well, eventually, the Starbucks in Forbidden City was closed. Next slide, please.
After the warm-up activity reading Starbucks open in Forbidden City that aroused students' interest in the impact of foreign culture in their own traditional culture and customs, students will watch a popular Disney video clip, It's a Small World. Everyone knows this song from their little kids, but so that's why we want to take advantage of this well-known song to draw students' attention to its lyric, to remind students human beings share one planet. Smiling is an international language, and friendliness is the stepping stone to promote world peace.
Okay, next slide, please. After reading articles, watching video clip, and a lot of discussions, now it is time to create a vocabulary list. Students use this circle map, which is from Thinking Map, to make a vocab list. Students can be divided into small groups to come up with essential to know and nice to know vocabulary. Students are required to learn essential to know words, not only know how to read and understand, but also how to write them. For some language, if you know how to speak, you might know how to write. But a language like Chinese characters, writing is a totally different matter. Even if you can speak Chinese, you might not know how to write it.
Next slide, please. So after the vocabulary list being created, students will read authentic articles of different topics. For example, localization of foreign cultures, tolerance of different cultures and customs, and so on. In the meantime, students will also read articles of various text types, such as script of a speech, press release, and so on. And after reading, students will explore and discuss the importance of cultural integration.
Okay, next slide, please. Since students are different, so we might design different activities for them to do. It could be a skit, song, poster, story, etc. We also can make connection with other subjects and do a project or simply do some reading and writing activities. Holly and I designed this unit in China, but haven't used it in our classes. Professor Compress in Dominican Republic has used it in his class. Now I'm handing over to Professor Compress.
Hello, my name is Juan Carlos Comprés, and I am a teacher at Cattle Morgan International School, that's in Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic. And as my colleagues said, they were able to design the unit, and I was able to implement it here. And this is just a testament of the flexibility of our curriculum and our units. A unit that was designed in Shanghai is going to be used in Santo Domingo in the Caribbean. And it was really important to know that you can use different units in different parts of the world. And I'd like to point out at the different stages of this unit when we started and how the students have reacted to it. When we started, I think they were not aware of the globalization we actually have to be exposed to. So the very first activity I asked them to do was to show me some objects that were laying around their houses at that moment. When they did, then I asked them to find out where those objects were made. And to their surprise, they were made from all over the world. And that helped them become aware of all the objects and things that were around their houses that were not made in the country they were living in. So that was the very first thing. And then you can see now in this slide, this is a Padlet they did. And in this Padlet, we started talking about globalization, and they had to come up with their own definition. Then they had to do some research to find out what that actually means. And in the different fields, globalization is applied or it happens. And this time it was a video, and this is an activity that they really, really enjoyed. Our students enjoy talking to a camera and recording themselves when doing that. So this was a very important activity for them because it did two things. Number one, it helped them become aware of globalization in their own lives. And number two, it started building the vocabulary they needed to talk about their different experiences in reality. Next slide, please. And I'm going to fast forward this to 3 weeks, more or less, 3.5 weeks. This is the list of the vocabulary related to globalization that they were able to come up with after 3 weeks. We're talking about 30 to 40 new words or expressions they didn't know. And this vocabulary was built just in class and by watching videos and discussing the topic and doing some research too. And now most of it has become part of their everyday vocabulary when we discuss these topics. I would like to point out to the integration with other subjects. It is amazing how they're able to use the knowledge they have acquired from other classes, but also it's amazing how they can expand on that. And for this class, for this particular class, they were able to access new knowledge through the target language. And I think that was awesome because they told me, and this was part of their feedback, that they were able to talk about issues that they hadn't been able to talk about in their own culture or language. I would like to, next slide, please. I'd like to show you the one of the final assessments we are doing right now, where we actually finished just yesterday, an essay. And the essay is globalization something positive or negative? And this is the final product, or just a screenshot of it. Please, next slide. And I'd like to show you the process. This is how we started. They were given organizers and they had to do some brainstorming and their ideas. They had to organize their ideas. And as you can see, I was able to give them feedback because I like to address some things, some concerns some people might have because of this approach. People sometimes do or stress grammar a little bit too much. And they think if we go with this approach that grammar is going to be neglected. It is not. We actually address those concerns and issues. We take notes, we give them feedback, but we also take notes on those common mistakes they make. And once we're done with that step or phase in the unit or in the lesson, then we go over those mistakes and we address those weaknesses that we see in our classes based on what we see when they write, when they shoot a video, or when they do anything related to the topic. Please, next slide. This is the same student, again, a graphic organizer, where she had to put her ideas down on paper, and then she had to include some phrases, transitional phrases and words. What I like to point out is that two things. One, this is an argumentative essay. So this was something they were doing in English. So we were able to integrate English and Spanish in this case, because they were able to write an argumentative essay. Please, next slide. This is the result, the final result. It is amazing. This student wrote 3 pages. This is a 3-page essay for a person whose native language is not Spanish in our case, and she was not requested to do so. However, all the knowledge and the vocabulary she had gained allowed her to do this. And at the beginning of our unit, she never thought she would be able to do it this way and this well, but this is just a testament of what happens when students are engaged and they're doing something that they're interested in. Please, next slide. Oh, I'm sorry. But what I like to point out is the feedback that I get from them. We're not using a textbook either. We use different resources. And I actually asked them if they would like to do that. They would like to go back to a textbook. And their response was, no way, we don't want to do that. We are really excited about this because we are connecting with other subjects. We're learning about a different culture. We're learning about our culture. And the next step, we haven't finished with this unit, but the next step after they wrote this essay, they're going to do a debate. And this is going to be filmed, it's going to be videotaped. So this is something they really enjoy doing. And we started from Shanghai, then we applied that to the Dominican Republic, Santo Domingo. And now they're going to explore their own culture. And what they are going to do is ask themselves, is globalization present in our lives? How is it present in our lives? And so this unit, they have enjoyed it really, really much. And the fact that they have been able to acquire new knowledge, to expand on what they already knew, and to integrate that with other subjects, this has made the unit amazing. So I thank my colleagues for designing the unit and giving me the chance to apply it to our classes. So now I'm going to hand it over to Ms. Dalinka Fabini. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Delinka Febini. I'm teaching French at the American International School of Budapest. I would like today to talk about a culminating unit in grade 12. If I can have the next slides. This is showing grade 11. The overarching question is there about the culture, and grade 12 is about intercultural understanding and our engagement and how it contributes to our personal well-being, but also to the well-being of our world. Today, I would like to focus on Unit 3. The Unit 3's question is about how can we contribute to solving local and international conflicts and challenges. Next slide, please. So this is a unit that I think is really asking a very deep question, because students will understand the local and global issues. They will be discovering the causes and effects of these issues. And as we have heard before, we are connecting here, first of all, with ourselves, and then also with all the other subjects, and then we are connecting with the world. That understanding an issue can actually lead to considering also solutions. Personal involvement will lead to better understanding and clearer possible solutions. I hope to demonstrate this with this example. Yes. Next slide, please. By the end of this unit. So this is what as previously Daniela explained, we tell the student that this is what we want them to do. In grade 11 and 12, we teach the IB program, and we want our students to be really analyzing. Why? We want them to critically evaluate the sources. We want them to investigate a topic that they are really interested in, and we want them to create their own solutions. So these are all the different things that we would like them to do, of course, ending with reflecting about daily and personal actions that can contribute to the global well-being. So next slide, please. So how did I start this unit? Well, I just chose a picture that we took during a service learning trip to Senegal. This was taken in a marketplace. I showed this picture to the class, and I asked the students to first think about what issue from the target culture, we speak about a Francophone culture in this case, they can recognize in this picture. It is really amazing what students are going to come up with. First of all, some will mention poverty. Others will say, well, there's hardly any food there, so it must be hunger. Others will talk about the well-being of these children. Others will talk about, well, education. These are young girls. Maybe they should not be working in the marketplace. Then something that I never even saw when I looked carefully at the picture was there's a man sitting on the right side. And so they said, oh, no, this is about gender equality. Some mentioned, oh, that's water there, probably in those plastic things. So this is actually about clean water. Some mentioned, oh no, the wood, it's clean energy, decent work, infrastructure, the environment, look at all the garbage around. So basically, we discovered that everyone was seeing something different in this picture. And that's when we really could go to the next step, which was, please, the next slide, the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So this unit then explores these UN Sustainable Development Goals. And well, French being a language spoken also in Western Africa, in other parts of the world, South America, then the Polynesian Islands, we really have a very diverse world, not just the developed countries of the Northern Hemisphere. So the students then become the expert in one of the goals that is related to one of their personal interests. So it may be something that they just discovered in this picture, or something else that they are studying. Maybe it is philosophy or psychology. It all depends. Or they are in the Model United Nations, so they will want to talk about justice and institution. So it is really their own choice to find out something, to really investigate the topic. Can we go to the next slide? So this is really where all the standards come in a very personal and deep level, because the students will have to research the topic. This is their own choice, but they are also going to analyze it, looking at multiple perspectives and connections, maybe with history, psychology, science, when it, for instance, for the clean water. So it all depends on what they choose to do. Students will then use their communicative skills. They will have to present and explain the issue they chose. And this is quite a complex thing, because it has to be really showing that they understood the topic at a very deep level, that they can present their research based on different viewpoints also. They can compare and contrast with their own culture, so that's the comparison. And they will really develop this multidisciplinary approach and absolutely become the owners of their own learning. And after that comes the question that is actually the goal 17, which is about how can this lead us to look into solutions and consider partnerships and action. And we also, of course, include here COVID-19 and how it impacts our societies today. Next slide, please. So this is an example. You just see the first page of it. This was about objective 1. So the students basically chose the objectives that they are interested in discovering, and they research it. They research it because they have to add, as I said, something that becomes multimedia, to find a video, an article, a song, a photograph, and then also list all the new vocabulary. They choose it all and they share it with others, with the class, with parents, and also with younger students, so that they also can show their understanding of this topic to that level, that they can initiate maybe some solutions. Next slide. So the question here, because there always needs to be questions, is the solutions. Now, for instance, for the listening, we had the pleasure to listen to the radio program there that is about a school for children who are deaf and mute, together with children who can hear. It is a unique endeavor in Senegal, and teachers from Benin are coming there to really support the learning. We understand then the situation of this school, and we also, because of the COVID situation that we're in now, had the pleasure to have a virtual visit of the school to see the children learn. We also had a conversation with the founder of the school, Le Cajoutier. This was the way we developed the communication skills, about the interpersonal communication skills that allowed us to ask questions, to understand the topic even better. Next one, please. So some of these students had the pleasure of participating in a service learning trip last year when they were in grade 11 at that school. You see them on this picture. And that was for them, please can we stay a minute on that slide? It was really their personal involvement, and it led them to think about the fact that we are here in Europe, and it made us realize that we should really also appreciate our life much more than we do. Next slide, please. So then comes the student feedback. Well, they all said that this was the unit they liked most. And I think that some of these ideas are crucial to understanding that we are educating young people. We are educating people who will be out in the world the year after. And when they say that finding pictures, learning vocabulary, it widens their knowledge about their own issue, but also about all the other issues when they listen to the presentation. It also made them investigate a topic that some of them found out that, well, they want to study at university. So one student who was into engineering decided now to study about sustainable development because of this unit and has applied for that. At the end of this unit, looking at solution, we decided we want to contribute to sponsoring the education of a kid who is hearing impaired. It's a small step, but there we go. I asked the student to just, in one word, give their feedback about our conversation with the founder of that school, Les Cajoutiers. Next slide, please. And these were the words that they gave. I think you recognize the shape of Africa. We are here reaching out to the world. There are the words perseverance. There's a word chance because opportunities, motivation, humility. There's a picture of the little girl we're going to help sponsoring. Here we have the connections. We have also communities because we're reaching out. And I think that with this unit, the students have not just become more proficient language learners, but they have also become better human beings. So that is the end for me. So if you have questions, we can answer. Thank you.
Thank you to everyone. What a fantastic presentation. I think after being involved in these for the entire day, and I hope that all of you people who have been so diligent about coming back from hour to hour to listen to our comprehensive overview probably can feel the same way I do, which is absolute awe in terms of the people who have participated in the project. In their work together over many years, it shows how even across the world, we find commonality and we find our way and we believe in world languages and all they have to offer. We know how profound that experience is for students. Each person here has reached out to their colleagues in other disciplines, and they will serve as great role models and mentors to all of us. So it was an inspiring day so far. We have one more presentation to share with you on how to adapt these longer sequence units to shorter sequences, and that's going to be carried forth as our very last presentation today. Of course, all of these recordings will be available through ECIS in the cloud and available to you and to any of the people in your schools that we were able to register. And of course, if you want to register now, feel free to do that and have access to all of those. Are there any questions that I know Joe, who's our events at ECIS technology person, can monitor the questions in the chat, or you can raise your hand and she can state your question out loud. Unfortunately, we cannot see you. But if there are any questions, please feel free to put them forward.
Yeah, we've had a question around how long does a unit last for?
Who would like to jump into that? Daniela, do you want to answer how long your unit lasted, for example?
I think that depends a lot on the students itself and whether you're in school teaching in person or hybrid or virtual. It impacts on how long a unit lasts. But for example, my grade 9 unit, it was about 2 months, 2.5 months. So 10 weeks altogether.
I will add that we had quite a debate this year, given the COVID out, of whether it's better to shorten units and take out essential elements, or whether it's better to do fewer units. And unanimously, unlike some other content areas around the world, even in the AERO project, we made the decision to do fewer units. We felt that in order to meet the standards and benchmarks and to really build proficiency assessment, academic language, it was better to just do the units for a longer period of time at a greater depth than to push units onto students throughout the year. So we've adapted a little bit by saying to you, just do fewer units. Anyone else want to comment on that?
In every year, for every class, we designed 4 or 5 units. And it seems like it's a good number to have in a school year, especially when we have to create report cards at the end of the quarter. And it's a very nice organic unit 4 times a year. And very often a 5th one fits in as well. But that seems to be working for all the grade levels.
Super. And how does a school with many world languages work with the units? Does a student who has 2 world languages do the same units for each language? If that is the case, do they mind?
That's something that we've experimented with in my own district over many, many years. And we found that usually the 2nd or the 3rd language is in a shorter sequence. So that will show why it's, you're able to adapt some of these units to make them more simplistic. If you're doing a critical language such as Arabic or Mandarin, where the proficiency time for Romance language speakers and English speakers is maybe 5 times what it is for a Romance language to a Romance language, you can cover the same topic, but you do it at a shorter depth. So rarely do you have someone on a parallel track proficiency-wise, although in some international schools we might. But I think the great thing is seeing this from the viewfinder of the language and culture that you're teaching, or the cultural world that you're teaching from, so that the French teacher and the Russian and the German are all going to have a very different lens through which the students in that classroom. And imagine the power of doing 2 similar units, and maybe even in social studies and English language arts at the same time. It really elevates students to a critical thinking level that we rarely see with multilingualism. Anybody else want to comment on that, Dalinka?
I think the example given actually by Holly Li Ming and then used by Juan Carlos is actually a good example of how you can reuse a unit in a different context. Also that these 5 units are just an ideal number. And I think it's and the 5th one we added like the extra unit, but really I think the most important is that we do teach kids. And we are thinking about what is best for them always.
Can I also answer from the perspective of the Zagreb? So we teach German and French in Zagreb, and very often we actually do parallel units at the same time in collaboration with social studies, most often, but sometimes also with language arts. And we always, as a group, teaching French, or so students of the German or students of the French contribute something to the English unit. So often we do together, and lots of the units are done collaboratively for different languages. And we are, it depends on the level of the students. It's not always possible, but in many cases in Zagreb, we do it parallel.
Just one thing to the same question from the unit writing perspective. Some of the units contain examples from 2 cultures or 2 languages. I remember one that has a German example as well as a Chinese example. And it's really nice to see how to the same question, you can discuss different case studies, different topics. And I really wish this to every student who goes to an international school to participate in this experience, if not simultaneously, then maybe consecutively after a few years or so, but it's really a wonderful experience, even on paper.
We do talk at the early grade levels, but it applies here too, about co-teaching, pre-teaching, and reteaching. So in some cases, if a student has a great grounding in political science, in economics, in English language literature, world literature, it's a lot easier in your unit to follow that because they've had a grounding already in the big idea. So it makes them able to do work, so different people have asked about this, in the target language, because really they're not having to learn the concept at the same time. They already have that concept nailed down in their other content area. So if you're changing the order of units, be thinking about your other disciplines in your school. The hardest thing really is to pre-teach. So if a student doesn't have the concept, especially at this high level or middle school, you're doing a heavy, heavy lifting of having to teach them the content from science or social studies or political science before they actually engage in that unit in their native language, if that is English. So that's another way to imagine these units, is they take them out of the order so that you've given the kids a chance to learn that maybe in some other class, it'll come a lot faster to them through the target language then. Sorry, we have to say goodbye. It's sad to take such a talented panel and make them stop, because they could go on for another hour with millions of wonderful ideas. But I think Cam would back me up and say that she is so excited about this initiative that we'll all be back in some format or another for other World Language Days. So Dorsif's in her car. That's our moment to say goodbye to all of you for this session and see you shortly.
Thank you so much.
Bye everybody, we'll see you in 20 minutes. Bye-bye.